welcome to the Heart of the Matter. Today I have a special interview with Mr. Paul Martinelli. He is the president of the John Maxwell Team. And today he's going to share a lot from his personal life and experience in the hope and expectation that it's going to make an impact on your life so that you will become everything that you've ever dreamed about. Let's say a great big welcome to Mr. Paul Martinelli. Paul, you're welcome on the Heart of the Matter.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. Now Paul, personal journey. You started as a stutterer. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about where you're coming from so that they can understand that nothing should be able to limit them from getting to where they want to go?
You know, absolutely. I think my journey, Pastor, is probably similar to all of your viewers. You know, early in life, all of us become aware of our differences, and those differences are highlighted. And for me, it was my speech impediment. I stuttered terribly, and I was made fun of. I have a very close friend, Nick Vujicic, who you may know, and some of your viewers may know, the young Australian man born without any limbs, no arms, no legs, and he too was teased. So it doesn't matter, Nick with no arms and no legs, me with a stuttering impediment, someone else who may have a big ear or a small ear, or maybe skinny or round. On the playground of life, kids can be cruel. And the power of that, I think, is that we get teased and picked on, and we begin at a very early age to form a picture of us different than God's perfection within us.
Now, talking about the kind of things that are programmed into us, you know, there are lots of things that have affected our belief system because of the way we're programmed. There's a few things that make us see ourselves negatively because of the way we've been brought up.
Sure. One of them is the assumption that if you don't have an education, you'll amount to nothing. My brothers and sisters all advanced greatly and got advanced degrees in education, and I failed out of high school. And that one program message that you'll never amount to anything held me back for years because I believed that I never really would, or more importantly, that I couldn't because I didn't have an education. And then when you start to study, you realize Edison had a third grade education. So that's one. I was programmed that the rich got richer and the poor got poor. So and unfortunately, we weren't born rich, so we were poor. So, you know, I believed financially that my destiny was that I was never going to really be able to accumulate great wealth. Nobody in my family had. There was no evidence that any of us could, and certainly without education, I couldn't. And that was a program that I found out to be false. So there's many of these programs that would have us believe of our imperfection.
So what do we do to get the right belief systems going internally?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to tune into shows like yours. And I say that not to be polite. I say that because I truly believe it. At the Heart of the Matter helps you expand your awareness. It causes you to really think. You know that most people will spend 70% of today thinking thoughts that they thought yesterday. And most of those thoughts, they didn't even think. They read them in the newspaper, they heard them on TV, they saw them on just in a conversation with someone else. Very few people will tune into a show like this and go into creative evaluative thinking where we expand our awareness. So the very first step, I think, to creating a new belief is become aware that there is this inner image. You can't change that which you're not aware of.
I love the story you told earlier on about the plastic surgeon.
Sure.
One of the books you read. I don't know if you'd like to repeat that story.
Yeah, it's a really powerful lesson. It was the book called Psycho-Cybernetics. Psyche is the Greek word for mind. Cybernetics is the science of control within mechanisms, electronic mechanisms. And we're all familiar with cybernetic mechanisms. If you've ever flown on a plane, the pilot takes the plane off, he flies for the first, or she flies for the first 10 or 15 minutes, then they leave the cockpit and walk down and say, hey, how are you doing? You know, I'd be a lot better if you were flying the plane. Yeah. But they don't need to fly the plane because there's a cybernetic mechanism. It's called an automatic pilot. We know that with the thermostat. There's a set goal we set to a set temperature. And if the temperature changes within the room and it moves from that set goal, that system measures the deviation from the set goal and a message is sent. Same for you and I. You and I have a programmed belief, an inner image. And what Maxwell Maltz did as a reconstructive plastic surgeon, he found that he could change the outward appearance of someone, and then 6 months later, they would still be challenged with the inferiority complexes and the self-image and self-worth doubts that they had. And he realized, I changed the outer image, not the inner image.
It's a bit like what Jesus said when you wash the outside of the cup.
That's right.
You don't wash the inside of the cup. So to get people from where they are now with the kind of thinking, what are the steps that you would say, really simply to our viewers, to get into where they should be?
Yeah, number one is you have to have a target to hit. You know, without a target, you're lost. You've got to have a destination. You have to have a goal.
What are realistic goals and unrealistic goals? You know.
Yeah, I think goal setting is an intellectual skill. It's something that we learn. So I don't think that you start with really big goals if you're new to goal setting. Start with something small, something that's measurable. And as you build the habit and the character of discipline to attain that goal, then you can make bigger goals that may seem unrealistic today. So the first step is certainly having a goal.
Talking about goals, before you can set a goal, you need to have a dream. And most people are conditioned or programmed, as you know, to believing that some dreams are just totally pie in the sky. What would you say about a dream?
Yeah, I think you have to have big, bold dreams. I think the true litmus test of a dream is, does it scare you and excite you at the same time? Right? You're excited because, wow, if that were to really manifest in my life, that would be amazing. And then you're scared because you know that it's way out of your league. You're in deep weeds. Then you know that you're on the right track. There's a part of us in dreaming. We come into, when God created us and we're birthed into this life, we are birthed dreamers. You see a little kid, you put a little child in front of the cabinets in the kitchen, and they're taking out the pots and the pans, and they're building castles, and they're the king of the universe. And then at some age in school, we're taught, hey, pay attention, quit daydreaming. And what we want to do is we want to go back to the sandbox, and we want to start dreaming really big dreams.
You know, I talking about that, I remember when I'd prefer a cardboard box to a train set, because the cardboard box could become anything I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But there are people out there that don't see the possibility of their dream coming to pass. The circumstances around them seem to militate against their dream.
Sure.
What would you say to people like this?
I would say that you have to consider the source of the dream. When we have a dream, that's the coordinated effort of our mind with the mind of God. That is the desire within us, the unexpressed possibility with us, seeking a oneness with God, and we become truly divinely inspired with a really big idea. And that really big idea is not going to match our small man-made circumstances. And most people will give more credit and more credence to the conditions and circumstances of the physical world.
I want to ask, how do you know your dream has come from God? Because some people are dreaming and they're not really sure. Is this a God dream or not?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I've got two brothers, and when I call them and I say, hello, this is Paul, and they say hello, or if they call me and I answer the phone, they don't have to say their names.
Yeah.
I know their names, and I know their names, and I know the sound of their voice. And I think if you're unsure of God's voice in your life, then spend some time to get to know Him. Now, how did I get to know my brother's voice? Well, I know my brother's voice in good times and bad. I know my brother's voice in the morning, I know my brother's voice in the midday, and I know my brother's voice at midday and in the evening. I've invested emotionally time to get to know my brother. So I think if we get to know our Father, we'll know our Father's voice.
So what you're saying is we're talking really to people who have or want to have a relationship with God, because these are the people who hear from God through dreams and then can move to the next step. We'll be back in a moment. We just need to go on a short break. Viewers, stay tuned to the Heart of the Matter. Welcome back to the Heart of the Matter, where we're talking to Mr. Paul Martinelli. Just before we went on the break, we were talking about dreams. Now, Paul, what happens if I have a dream and all the people around me keep saying there's no way, this can't happen, it won't happen? What do I do? My wife, my friends, my pastor?
Yeah.
What do I do?
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? That the people who you love the most and who probably love you the most don't believe in your ability or your capacity to bring the dream forward. And I think first is you have to gain understanding as to why do they believe that. And you know, the reason they believe that is because they have an image of you also. You have an image of yourself, and they have seen you in a certain light. They haven't seen this newly inspired you. They haven't seen this divinely guided you. This hasn't yet been birthed. It's the seed underneath the ground, and they're standing on top of the dirt saying, I don't see any life here. Yet with understanding, we know that there's life. We know that there's a new you being rooted. So I think what we want to do is we want to separate ourselves from the attachment of others' judgment and focus on our participation. So we separate ourselves from our attachment. It's not necessary. It's not necessary right now that my wife or that my pastor or that my friends absolutely believe in me. Now, I would encourage you to say, I understand that there's been times in my life where I've made great declarations of things I was going to do and I didn't do. I said I wasn't gonna overeat, and I overate. I said I was gonna start to exercise, and I didn't exercise. There's been a lot of times where I said I was gonna change my life, and I didn't do it. And I understand that. All I'm gonna ask you now is if you can't believe me and can't believe in me, that's okay. But please don't hold me back. Don't go against me.
Okay. That's good. Now, this involves actually taking control of your life.
You bet.
And deciding. So taking your example, what was the point that you realized that you can take control of your life and you don't have to be guided in your life by what other people think of you and so on and so forth?
Boy, isn't that a powerful moment in our lives where we can detach from our need to satisfy other people and begin to live God's purpose in our lives. What a freeing day it is. And for me, I was probably 23 or 24, and it never occurred to me that I could. You know, Pastor, I was programmed to believe that, you know, we play the cards that we're dealt in life.
Yeah.
And you know, it never occurred to me that I could take my cards and I could throw them back into the center of the table and demand a new hand, or even become the dealer of my own life. I think what we do is, one of the most powerful things we can do is get into a community of like-minded people. On the John Maxwell Team, we lead mastermind groups. I'm sure here you have Bible studies and groups like that of fellowship. You want to get in a group of like believers. I think one of the most important things in the manifestation of our dreams is our faith. You know, we always face in the direction of our faith. And what we want to do is we want to fortify, nurture, and foster our faith. And there's no better way to do that than getting into the Word daily, and then by fortifying that with like believers in small groups.
I'm going to ask you a question, a tough question.
Sure.
What is faith?
I think, yeah, for me, I think faith is a verb. It's not a declaration. I think faith is action. Faith is discipline in action. Faith is when you give yourself a command and you follow through with it, regardless of the outside conditions or circumstances. Faith is when you do something without knowing the how, without knowing the exact outcome, without understanding the full process, and being willing to trust a power higher than yourself to fulfill it.
Now, some steps. I mean, you woke up one day and you realized that, hey, I can go just about wherever God, wherever I dream.
Yeah.
I can follow my God-given dream. What then are the steps you take?
Sure.
Because here, somebody has a dream to own an airline, but he hasn't even got a bicycle.
That's right.
So what steps do you take to getting?
Yeah. Well, I think first off is the steps become revealed to us. We have an intuitive guidance system,
and they don't get revealed all at one time.
Yeah. Because if they did, it would scare you probably, because you wouldn't be able to. So you take the first step without knowing any of the other steps. That's where faith comes in. Yeah. But I think what happens is we become intuitively guided. That when we ask our Father in heaven to send us a sign or send us a blessing, I believe that we become intuitively aware of a step. What most of us do is question whether that step is right or wrong, whether it fits into our life. It's not going to fit into your life because it's not coming from this life. It's coming through you from a higher source. So I think it requires obedience to, when we become aware of an idea, to follow through with that idea, regardless of whether it makes, quote unquote, sense or not. With the John Maxwell Team, currently we're having a leadership award where we're identifying 10 leaders. One of our leaders in business is the chief operating officer for a company called Taco Bell.
Okay, heard of it.
Taco Bell owns Kentucky Fried Chicken. They own Pizza Hut. It's a huge franchise, billions of dollars. He started when he was 16 as a cleaner.
Okay.
He wasn't even working the register. He was cleaning up after the shifts. After they had taken all the tacos and all the food out of the building, then they would let him in. He started as a janitor. You've got to start where you are. The conditions and circumstances where you are. The conditions and circumstances will never be congenial, but they won't remain so if you will but perceive a dream. That's what James Allen wrote in his book, As a Man Thinketh. The conditions and circumstances you're in may not be congenial, but they will not remain so if you will but perceive a dream and continue to move forward in that dream. You have to start where you are. And where you are and who you are is enough to start.
So you don't need to wait, because lots of people are waiting till they have the money.
You'll never get it. It doesn't work that way. It never works that way. It never works that way. People will say, well, I'm waiting for the money before I can, make a decision. Well, then you don't need the money because you haven't made the decision. The decision comes first. Let me just share a real quick story, if I could.
Yes, please.
I have a nephew, Mark, who came to me one day, and he said, Uncle Paul, I'm kind of depressed. I've been wanting to buy a house. And I said, well, great. So why don't you buy a house? He said, well, I don't have any money. And I said, okay. He said, well, what house do you want to buy? Show me a picture of the house. He didn't have a picture of the house. And I said, well, what's it cost you to look for the house? See, it costs, in the United States, to go look at a house and meet with the real estate agents and find a house costs nothing. See, he wasn't even willing to take the first step. I said, you don't need money. You don't even have a house to buy. Let's find a house first. And then I asked him, have you sat down with a mortgage, with a banker, to even see how you could get a loan, to see if there was any first-time home buyer loans, or maybe there's government grant money, or have you looked at any of those options? See, the belief and the waiting on the requirement of the resource prevented him from even taking the steps. 90 days later, he had a house. And he found a house with a government grant with no money down, nice starter home, 2-bedroom house. Today he still lives in that home, doing quite well. So we often start with a belief and we make an agreement with our struggle. We make an agreement that I don't have money, so therefore I can't. Don't ever argue against for what you don't want. What you argue for, you get.
Now, mentorship. How important do you think it is to have mentors in one's life?
Oh, I think mentorship is critical. I think having you know, one of the things we have in the John Maxwell team is a mentorship program. We have now 3,000 coaches, many of them right here in Nigeria, and I would encourage any of your listeners to connect. Mentorship and coaching is very powerful. It's a powerful resource, because I think for, you know, mentorship is your life in advance in action. You're finding someone who is being or doing or having what it is that you want, who has already navigated the way. You know, the highest form of instruction is experience. And the beautiful thing about experience is I don't have to experience it if I can learn from
somebody
else's experience. Yeah.
Now, what would somebody look for in a mentor? Yeah. You know, you're going somewhere, you've got your dream, and you know you need somebody to sort of steady the boat and help you.
Sure. I think one of the very first prerequisites is that person has to have shared values. You have to have shared values. The second is that they have to have the results that you want.
Talking about shared values, let's talk a little bit about shared values. What are the sort of values that you, in the John Maxwell team, what do you have? What are the shared values?
Sure. One of our shared values is you know, John's a believer and a pastor. So there's a shared faith value. There's a shared value of integrity. There's a shared value of adding value to other people. There's a shared value of wanting to increase other people. There's a shared value of us coming from the creative, not the competitive plane. All of those are critical shared values. So I think in seeking a mentor, first we're looking for someone that we have shared values with. Second, we're looking for that they have the results.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is possible to preach something and not live it.
Oh yeah, there's lots of false prophets, aren't there? There's lots of false prophets. I think it's important that you know, by their fruit you'll know them. So I think you're looking for that.
Well, it's been great having you, Paul, on the Heart of the Matter. I do hope that we'll get to see you in these parts more often, and that our viewers, I'm sure, have tremendously benefited from hearing your thoughts and ideas today. Thanks ever so much for coming to the Heart of the Matter.
Thank you so much.
And viewers, we need to live that, to let that dream live. Go for it, because it will happen if it came from God. We'll be back again next week with another episode of the Heart of the Matter. Until then, stay blessed.